All right, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. My name is Adam Jankowski with Botkeeper. I'll be moderating today. And our guest host is David Bergstein. He's a CPA, CITP, and CGMA. He's passionate about technology and is highly sought after to speak on the topic for heavy hitters across the accounting profession, from the AI CPA to the IRS. David's going to be speaking with Botkeeper founder and CEO and my boss, Enrico Palmerino. Enrico also serves the board of Fidelity Bank and is an investor and advisor in several prominent tech companies. He's been recognized as one of the top 100 most influential people in accounting, top 30 most inspiring business leaders, and 2020 Golden Bridge Entrepreneur of the Year. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into chat, and I'll make sure to get them to our presenters. And with that, I'll just hand it off to Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Welcome, Enrico. It's good to have you on the show. This is the first show of the year for me, and I guess I had the main player in the AI arena in the accounting space. I guess as founder and chief executive officer, you started Botkeeper in, I think, July 2015. So this makes this your 10-year anniversary. How do you feel about that?
Like, just the fact that a decade's gone by is, I think it's mind-blowing. And to think that we started this AI journey a decade ago, and AI is like the hot topic now, and everyone's like, oh, AI, it's this new thing. It's like, I mean, it was around way before we started, and that was a decade ago. So it's exciting. And then I just say, like, I'm uber appreciative. I think the stats on a business surviving 10+ years are pretty marginal. So the fact that we crossed that major milestone and have many more years ahead of us, and some exciting growth and new products, that I'm very fortunate and blessed to be where we are today.
Well, since you touched on new products and blessed to be here, I know I attended AI Unchained, I guess in this past year, and that was exciting with a lot of things you were talking about, a lot of the guest speakers. So I guess I'll start off with the big question. We'll work about the industry later on, but tell us a little bit about the roadmap for the upcoming year. I know Botkeeper Infinite was introduced last year, and that made it a way for, I guess, anybody who wanted to use Botkeeper to do it in a technology way only without human intervention. So that was really a good start for AI. But tell us a little bit about what you think is going to happen, what your roadmap is, and where you see things going.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that Infinite's not even been out for a year. Like, it's technically only been out for, I think, 2.5, 3 quarters, if that. But it feels like it's been our core product for as long as we've been around. The big shift was we had to get the technology and the AI to a point where it could do a substantial amount of the work for you at a really high accuracy, so that you wouldn't either be reviewing a lot of work or using it to do bits and pieces here and there that aren't actually improving process and automation. And so we crossed that hurdle at the end of 23, launched Infinite April of 24, and it's gone, I'd say exceptionally well. I mean, like with any new product, there's little bugs and stuff that needed to be ironed out, but for the most part, we did that in Q3. And then Q4, the big thing that we launched at the end of the year was, historically, you had to integrate or connect all your financial institutions directly with Botkeeper in order for our AI to process it. Now we've made it as easy as just connect your QBO account. So connect your QuickBooks account, connect your Xero account, and Botkeeper will either pull all the data from that account into our system, run it through the AI, and process it for you. Or if you want to take advantage of like statement fetching, real-time reconciliations, and some other functionality, there is a benefit to actually connecting directly with Botkeeper. But that was a big thing that we launched at the end of the year. We announced that AI Unchained, the autonomous reconciliation process. I can tell you it's not uncommon now for us to have firms where nearly all or all of their clients' reconciliations are done fully autonomously. And that's saving a ton of time, a ton of energy, and money. But most importantly, I'd say, like, fundamentally changes the accounting workflow. So you no longer have this like month-end review process they used to do, because now it's continuous AI doing review, and you just kind of check what it surfaces for you in real time, or on the daily or the weekly. The autonomous reconciliation process, the fact that statements automatically get fetched and brought in, the journal entries are automatically booked. Like it's like these things that are now changing, I think, for the better, the accounting workflow, and allowing accountants to not live in this, I do daily stuff, but then like one part of the month I like pause, shift, and kind of go back and do this like full on month end, close process. Now you can just get into like a really good rhythm of daily processing and not have to have this like weird, I think a month end process take place. So that's exciting.
Let me interject with a question there, just to make sure everybody understands it. I'm looking at it from my sixth grade type perspective. Can we say that Botkeeper now can help an accounting firm go from transaction to GL autonomously?
Yeah, and if you're using Giraffe, you can go from transaction to GL to close to rolling 90-day forecast fully autonomously and basically in real time. So yeah, I mean, and that, like, you think about it, if even a year or 2 years ago, the idea that you could kind of sit back, and it's not that you like be hands off with your client, but you're addressing the things that really are, if anything, challenging your mind, and then having the time to actually look at the data in a more holistic way instead of at like a transactional level, so that you could either be prepared to have a conversation with your client, you could put some additional notes into their financials when you send them off to them, or package up like a better report, or just take on more business and more clients and have better margins. And that, at the end of the day, with like a lot of the firms, will trickle down to the staff with whether it's like bonuses or variable compensation or the ability to do incremental benefits or better benefits. So I think it's an exciting time, and a lot's changing, and I haven't seen anything changing where I'd say it's changing for the worse. Sometimes, like in the moment, people will be like, oh, this is changing for the worse. It was so much better when something happened a certain way, and then a few years go by and they're like, I can't imagine doing it any other way. In general, all these changes in accounting, I want to say, are like a long time coming. The accountants and industry have wanted these things to happen. I don't think anyone's there like, I love doing reconciliations, and I'm heartbroken that I can't do them anymore. So
well, I'm kind of glad I don't have to do reconciliations anymore. And what you're saying is really goes back to a time when you were just a little toddler. In 1989, the AICPA came out with something called the Group B specs that said, here's what we want to do for all accounting firms. And what they wanted to do for all accounting firms is what's really happening now with technology. They were always talking about technology, say, let's connect all our systems, let's make data entry become a thing of the past, where when a transaction occurs and it's recorded, it moves into the system and works its way down. You accomplished it, right? I remember in the beginning when you first came out, when we first met, there was a lot of human intervention, and data recognition had a low percentage. I think now you're probably up in the 90 some odd percentage recognition when a transaction occurs.
Yeah, in the early days, it was all about, like, I had this vision or dream of how I thought it should take place, and like an experience that you should have as an accountant. And so even though the tech wasn't quite there, we layered in the necessary like humans and accountants and review layers and stuff to deliver that ideal experience. And now what's really cool to see is just that, like, literally the tech's doing 80+% of the work, and it's doing it at 99.6% accuracy, which humans can't touch. And it's not doing, like, obviously in those numbers, all the work. There's still a need for an accountant, but it's just nice to know that you can be sick. You can feel under the weather today. You can have something come up with your kids, and know that, like, when you get back to your desk and start working, it's not like you got to dig out of this giant hole of work. Things have been happening, and you can kind of just step in and keep the ships kept afloat while you're away, and then you get to like polish everything up. So that's certainly exciting. The other cool thing is now you're starting to look at how do we interact with the AI. So it went from like, what can we teach the AI to do for us? Now it's the next chapter, and I call it the 2025 chapter, is going to be all about interactions with the AI and how we're interfacing with it and teaching it, or knowingly teaching it or we're allowing it to teach us. So I'll give a couple of examples of things we have coming out this year. Train your model is one of them. So, and I've been on this soapbox for years where I say, like, I'm not a huge fan of rules. Rules in a GL break, and they break often. And when they break, the best case scenario is they just stop working. The worst case scenario is they start entering data incorrectly. And nothing in life is static. So the thought that like we create all these static rules and it's going to work for a dynamic business with vendors and everything changing all the time just doesn't make sense. Train your model is our way of allowing you to basically introduce incremental confidence into the AI that will allow it to either like get to a point with you or with the client a lot faster without having to have the data interactions that would normally take place. So for instance, let's say like a client doesn't have a ton of transaction volume. He sees a transaction and it's like, hey, I think it's this, and then you confirm it and it learns. Well, it's going to want to build its confidence up. So it's going to ask you a few more times, like the next couple of times that happens, maybe over the next couple of months, maybe this transaction only occurs 3 times over the course of the year, and it's asking you that 3rd time towards the end of the year. Not the end of the world. You're training it just like you train a staff accountant. But if you could see that and be like, hey, like, let me insert some incremental confidence. Like anytime you see something like this is what it really is. And you're not hard coding it, so the AI can ask you again. But what you're doing is you're just basically saying like, unless you see something fundamentally or substantially different about it next time, you can assume it's this. And that's highly beneficial with brand new clients that you're onboarding, that you have an understanding of their industry, but they might not have a lot of history in their books, franchises, any sort of like, if you're niched in an industry as a firm and there's a certain way you like to do things instead of the chart of account, now you can teach the AI to do it in a similar way. So I think that's going to be exciting. It also, the other big part, and this has kind of been what the itch that I've been wanting to scratch for a while, was how do you get the AI to do the really detailed, complicated, the class tracking and the job costing and departmental breakdowns. So what this fundamentally allows you to do is to interject a level of knowledge or information or guidance to the AI to be able to do these things that it would normally not have the context on. So it's now allowing the human to insert context. The AI is also then training us in the sense that when it's doing the autonomous review, it's whoever's looking at what the AI is surfacing and the logic and why is effectively just is learning from the AI where to look going forward. So let's say the AI breaks, so you turn that feature off. It has, over the course of interacting with you, trained you what to look for even in its absence. Not that like I think the autonomous month-end review would ever go away, but should it, or should you move away from it or move away from Botkeeper, you change the direction of your firm, your staff who are using it are going to be like, they're going to think through the month-end close process differently than if they hadn't used it. And then I'd say the last, there's 2 other big things coming this year, a major refresh and redesign of our system. So consolidating tabs and different pages, like bringing like core data right at like the front, dashboard of the platform, so you can see everything, and allowing you to like click into whatever you want and get right into the work or get the incremental detail you need. So I'm excited for that. I think like in general, that will create some level of efficiency. I don't know yet how to measure it, but it's going to be sleeker. It's going to be snappier. It's going to have fewer clicks to get the thing that you want done. It's going to consolidate a bunch of stuff that you might have had to move between different tabs for. So really excited to see that come out, likely in Q3. We might be able to get it out in Q2. And then Firm Insights. So Firm Insights is something I talked about on AI Unchained, where the AI is basically going to look at your practice and look at your clients and start to identify ways to optimize. So, hey, did you know you should do this, or this, employee is like falling behind on tasks, and you might want to consider taking a client off of them. Or here's what's changed, like they're falling behind on tasks not because they have more clients, it's because the scope is increased. So you can start to see like, where is the scope increase occurring, or how often did we close the books on time, and what percentage of the reconciliations were done fully autonomously versus with human assistance. Like all of this data, it's going to bring to your fingertips, but then even more allow you to ask it the questions that you want. So if you're like, hey, who has capacity to take on another client? You can ask the AI now in Botkeeper and it'll be able to surface that up to you. How are my margins? Is there, something different between, one client and the next, or which client appears to have the greatest level of scope creep, or I think frankly, the one that everyone should ask first is, how do I optimize my usage of Botkeeper or be more efficient on my clients? And it will tell you, here's 5 clients you should connect their accounts in Smart Connect. Here's 3 clients that you should enable this feature and function for. And then it'll quantify, doing this will save you 4 hours per month, and this will save you 3 hours per month, and based on what it can see in your transactions and everything going on. So to me, that's, as I mentioned, I think the big theme for this year is it went from like, set it and forget it, let the AI process for me, to let me interact in a constant manner with the AI, both it teaching me and me teaching it. And now that was a dream. If you probably pull up any interviews I did back in 2016 or 2017, I was talking about how the ideal is you have like this is now the human AI team that is better than either are by themselves. And I think 2025 is the year that actually starts to be realized and taken advantage of. So it's going to be exciting.
Well, that sounds real interesting, but you've talked about really 2 things here. You've talked about Botkeeper being autonomous once it's set up and doing the accounting work. And now you just talked about Botkeeper being utilized to manage the accounting firm, to make sure you're using your resources by using the Botkeeper tools that tells you what's going on within your firm. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm going to go back though to, I'm more into the automation of the work, since I'm a solo practitioner almost. So I know what I'm doing. I know when I have scope creep, etc. So you mentioned something before, and maybe people don't know what it is. You mentioned something called Giraffe. So
Giraffe. Yep.
You mentioned Giraffe. So when someone is using Botkeeper and they've set it up to go from transaction to GL, at that point in time, Giraffe, which is a financial planning and analysis tool, takes over and gives them insight into the client to be able to do advisory work.
Yeah, if you're using the 2 systems, and hopefully down the road we'll be able to have like a very unified experience with them. But as it stands now, and having them be separate is fine because they work and talk together. As soon as the books close, Giraffe has a technology that allows them to take the closed books and then instantly run an AI generated rolling 90-day forecast for you. And they're doing a bunch of other things too, but like that's just one of those things where it's like, hey, I spent time with my client building out a forecast and a budget for the year. To update that and how you're performing against it, and like where, basically keep updating the forecast, keep the budget as is, but how are we tracking to the budget? That's a tedious process. It's just time consuming to do it, and to do it every single month is time consuming. You'll see companies maybe update their forecast or give guidance, once a quarter. But thanks to the Giraffe Botkeeper, symbiosis, we can now autonomously process a lot of the day-to-day, rapidly close and reconcile your books, get you to a point where like, within 3 to 5 days, you can have the client's, books closed, and then instantly have an updated 90-day rolling forecast for the client. And that's like the dream of autonomous end-to-end automation. And that's why, I think we've been big fans of Giraffe for years. We actually both started right around the same time.
So both of you growing. And the future of accounting is all about compliance work never going away, just becoming totally autonomous through AI, and accountants using their time to do advisory services to help their clients grow. And you're really putting that all together here. So I think that's kind of interesting.
And I'll tell you, you see it in the numbers. The firms that use Botkeeper and Giraffe, or using Botkeeper plus another tool, are without a doubt growing the fastest. And it's funny because it's like pretty simple. If you're a firm and you're just bringing Botkeeper in and you're like, hey, we just need to automate the compliance first, and then we can think about doing something on the we don't have enough time yet, and we don't have like the muscle trained and the team trained to do advisory. So we're going to start here. you're going to grow to some level, but like your offering and how you compare to the market, you'll be like really strong in this one spot and weaker or lacking in another. Same with the firms who are like, we just do advisory and we don't get into the processing and we rely on like an outside party or something else. Maybe they have an outsourced team doing it. And now you're like, processing is table stakes mediocre, but you got a really great advisory offering. If you put the two of those together, you have a end-to-end offering that is super high value, very like you're giving the business owner the things they need to make decisions. And comparatively on the market, there aren't a lot of people who have a fully end-to-end autonomous AI, all the benefits of AI, the better, faster, cheaper, more accurate processing, and just more. Like you have more analytics, more data that you can comb through, slice and dice, get a sense for. And so those firms who have done both are like, whenever there's a bake-off or they're being compared, they usually win those opportunities because they're head and shoulder above whoever they're being compared to.
You're giving a good concise picture of what's going on. You see any competition for you coming into the marketplace, or you are that far ahead?
I mean, there's a lot of, I'd say, noise, but most of the competition that's coming in the marketplace like right now or in the last year, that like they might have a skin of the company that looks like Botkeeper. So they created like a suite and they got some processing layer, they got some other functions. When you dig under the hood, they're just using like ChatGPT or OpenAI to try to code transactions. And if you look at the accuracy of it, it's night and day. I mean, we're doing 80+% transactions at that 99% accuracy. And these other solutions are maybe making a recommendation on a third of the transactions. And at least I know the Intuit stats, and Xero, I think like Intuit's recommendations is like they'll make a recommendation on a third of the transactions, or no, actually it's 23% of the transactions, they get it right 35% of the time. So if that's Intuit, and then you got people using ChatGPT, and how can you like tell the difference? And there's no one that's entering the market in AI who's raised like a couple $1 million and just come out this year that's going to have a really great, like totally their own developed AI solution. You look at we raised $100+ million and we've been doing this for 10 years. It takes a lot of time and a lot of resource and a lot of iterations and model training and ensemble approaches, and you're adding multiple models and getting them to play off of each other to get to something that's really worthwhile. So there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people that kind of look like us or that look identical to us, but they've raised a few $1 million and they're using someone else's product to do these. And then that's when you click into the T's and C's, you realize that like, well, because they don't own the AI, we own all of our AI. It's all homegrown, developed. They're basically saying like, your data goes out the door here and we have no control over it. And if you're comfortable with that, sure.
Well, you created it from scratch. You were the first talking about it, as I remember, before anybody else was talking about it. Now we've got
a lot of arrows in that. The downside of being the first mover is you get a lot of arrows in your back. But if you survive,
you did have a lot of arrows. A lot of them were pulled out. You've made a lot of changes over the years. So if someone wanted to get a hold of your firm at this point in time, who do they reach out to? Do they go to your website, and or any place you want to tell them to go? Just to any of the listeners so know who to call.
Yeah, I mean that's the coolest part about having Infinite today. So before it used to be we sit down with a firm, we have a long conversation, we understand kind of the dynamics, we scope stuff out, we put it in contracts. Now you're like, this is cool, I want to try it, and literally hit the website, and for $69 a month you can add a few entities and try it out, or one entity and try it out. So I'd say, go to the site if you want more questions answered or anything. Like there's a ton of ways by which either real-time chat or communication. And we really try to like take that instantaneous, like instant gratification experience of processing and extend it to like how we do customer service and sales and everything. So yeah, if you hit our site, we should be able to get you, what you're looking for in a timely manner.
And that's really the future of buying. People don't want to call a salesperson. They want to go online, look at it, and if they can buy it online and check it out, that's great. I had a guest last month, one of your users from a firm in Baton Rouge. They had 10 clients, they set them up, and now they're adding another 10 because they like the way the first 10 worked. And I think they're doing it without any contact with you because they got the system in place, and that's really the great way to do it.
Yeah, we've really tried to, what's been nice, and this all happened over the course of the year. We rolled out Infinite, and then we're like, where are the gaps? We keep iterating, and we try to make the ability for you to onboard and deploy an entity without ever talking to someone at Botkeeper to take 1 to 5 minutes, and to be like easy and seamless. And we've seen it because I'll wake up in the morning and be like, where did another 100 entities come from? And someone put 40 of them on the platform in an hour at 11 p.m. at night from a firm that we had never heard of. So it's really cool. It's easy, and I think it's going to get easier. Like I said, we got this huge refresh that we're coming out with. We finally been able to like take a step back and then reimagine what would the ideal Botkeeper look and feel like, and function now that we've rolled out all these new features and functionality.
No, I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you putting the roadmap out there for everyone. Hopefully, if they're not listening today, you'll have it out in social media so they can find out what's going to happen with Botkeeper in the future, with more automation, more autonomous movement in the background, and making, I guess, client accounting services 2.0 or client accounting services 3.0 a reality today. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to interview you. Any final words to the listeners before we close up?
No, I just say, I think like you should expect to see there's going to be a consolidation of software in the accounting space, because in general, no one wants to manage like 50 apps to do one thing. So having a suite, and however that suite got formed, Botkeeper from the ground up, or companies acquiring and merging, that's going to be, I think, the general shift you're going to see over the next probably 3 years, certainly this year. But then the second part of that is that's what's going to give all the power to AI, because AI will only be able to like perform tasks in silos unless you have the full suite. And this is like, I'd say end of 2025, 2026 planning is how do we go and automate the function from start to finish, like a single prompt, or without even being prompted, the AI can go and move through a task or a function or work from the start to finish and do a bunch of different things in a bunch of different modules, and then deliver the end result the way that you want. And you can only do that in a suite or a platform. So I think you're going to start to see consolidations take place, I think, this year and next. You're already starting to see it, I think, with TR's acquisition of SafeSend, and Bench getting acquired. But that's a topic for another day. But yeah, it's exciting times, and we're going to get to the point where like we don't even know or realize our interaction with AI. Right now, it's a lot of like we got to coach and train it. In the next couple of years, it's running adjacent to us, and it's the very best assistant you could ever ask for. That's doing things and bringing stuff to you without you having to like be specific and tell it what to do.
I think the future is bright. There's always going to be accountants. There's always going to be a need for accountants and bookkeepers. But in order to continue to function, you have to utilize the technology. And AI seems to be everywhere at this particular point in time, and it's going to grow. Did
you see it? So Wall Street Journal published an article yesterday about how historically private equity was putting money in accounting firms. Now VCs and venture capitals buying or putting big money or taking stakes in firms on one condition only, that they get to drive the AI and technology adoption roadmap for these firms, because they're seeing it as these firms, it's a necessary solution. Everyone needs it. It's not going anywhere. The revenue keeps growing. And if I could just go from whatever the margins are today or the EBITDA, and with AI increase it 2 or 3x, you got yourself a really great investment.
So what company are you telling me to invest in next? Now we'll leave that for another time.
I'll tell you one that I like from a valuations standpoint. Interval. They're based in Canada, and actually I invested in them. I'm a big fan. We've got a few of our clients that are using them. So as you have time on your hands, and as you've using and automating away the processing and the forecasting and budgeting, the next thing is like tell me what my business is worth. And that's a field that like most people are uncomfortable dabbling in. But if you have AI that will do all the work for you and show it for you and allow you to deliver that solution to your client, it's a really easy way to like up the ante on advisory services.
No, I appreciate that comment. Everyone should check that out. Appreciate you being here today. I won't ask you any questions about pickleball to see if you've improved. Thank you for being on the edge, brought to you by yourself, Botkeeper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.